It is mock draft season here. Yay! More mock drafts for a team that does not have a first or second round pick. I have not done a ton of mock drafts on this channel because, let's just be honest, it's not a ton of fun when you don't pick until 67. But I did think, you know what, if we implement some trades, because I do think it's a very real possibility for Denver, that could spice things up a little bit here. So to refamiliarize yourself with Denver's 2023 draft picks, here is what they are working with. They've got pick 67, pick 68, pick 108, 141, and 195. So just 2 third-round picks to really do some damage, 2 picks in the top 100. So with that being said, will the Broncos trade for more picks? George Paton, after last year's draft, said, somewhat candidly, we're not going to be picking with these amount of picks next year. I can guarantee you that. Well, things did not go to plan for good old Georgie. So do you think Denver makes more trades to get more picks, whether it's moving back or moving on from some players? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. With that, let's jump right into it. With round 3, pick 67 on the clock, I went edge rusher out of USC. This is Tuli Tuipulotu. He is an awesome edge rusher, and I'm not jazzed up about it right now, but I should be, because he is 6'3", 266 pounds, a 3-year starter for the Trojans. He was a unanimous All-American Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year and first team All-Pac-12 last season. He's got great natural power and effort, which is kind of an odd thing to say, effort, but honestly, for a defensive lineman, that's what it comes down to for pass rushers in the run game, right? Do they want to go 100% even when it's not an obvious passing play because they just want to wreak havoc? Now, Tuli last season for the Trojans, 22 tackles for loss, 13.5 sacks. The guy was extremely productive. 2 forced fumbles and 3 pass breakups. When I look at Denver's front 5 for 2023, you've got Randy Gregory and Baron Browning as your 2 starters. That is a good duo right there. It's not an awesome duo, but it's a good duo, I would say. But the Broncos cannot, I'm going to say this one more time, cannot bank on Randy Gregory and Baron Browning and Nick Benito as the sole pass rushing unit for 2023. We have not seen Randy Gregory play a full season once in his career. We did not see enough from Nick Benito last year to believe he can be a big-time producer or contributor to this pass rushing unit. And as for Baron Browning, I actually like Baron Browning, but I just have to loop him in with the other one. So they need to add more pass rushers to this unit. I think going with pick 67 at that position would be a wise decision for Denver. Now, today's show, by the way, is sponsored by ZBiotics. Now, let's face it, after y'all hit me with a bunch of super chats, I don't bounce back well the next day. That is until I found ZBiotics. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Now here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut, where you need it most. Drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly of course, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Give ZBiotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports to get 15% off your first order and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you are unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use the code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring today's Broncos breakdown. Now let's get back to our mock draft here. After picking Tuli Tuipulotu at pick 67, I made a trade, and I am moving back with the Detroit Lions from pick 68 to pick 81, so falling back 13 spots, and in exchange, I pick up an additional third-round pick. I just don't think Denver's actually going to pick both at 67 and pick 68. I don't know if they plan to move up from one of those spots or move back from one of those spots. But I like the decision for Denver, if they choose to make it, to move back and pick up an additional third-round pick next year. Here's why. Look at Denver's 2024 draft picks. This is with this trade included. They don't have a second rounder. That belongs to the Saints for Sean Payton. But they did get New Orleans' third rounder. As they get their first-round pick back, you can do a lot of damage with the first and 3 third-round picks and 2 fourths, right? We're talking 3 day 2 picks and 2 early day 3 picks. If Denver has to do a major retool because 2023 does not go well and it is like 2022, this gives them a lot of flexibility and does not sort of strap them down to only having a first and 2 thirds in the first 2 days of the draft. So I want to know, is edge the biggest need for this team? After I went edge with my first draft pick, do you think it is? Give me a Y for yes or N for no. Now, after making that trade, here's where I went with at pick 81. Julius Juju Brents, cornerback out of Kent State. Originally an Iowa Hawkeye, the Indianapolis native transferred to K-State, and he has some awesome measurements for a cornerback. People love to make a big deal out of quarterback hand size. What I actually do look at is cornerback height, right? I want to know, are they going to get an extra fingertip to that pass or not? At 6'2", you better believe it. 198 pounds, a 2-year starter at K-State. Last year, 2022, first team All-Big 12. He also led the Wildcats in interceptions and pass breakups. He's got phenomenal size, and you cannot teach size, but concerning ball skills, good news. That is something coaches can work on with Brents. Now, here's what his stats looked like in coverage last year. Less than 50% completion percentage when targeted. That's what you want to see. 374 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Big 12, where they refuse to run it unless a gun is to the coach's head. Yeah, that's not too shabby. 4 pass breakups and 4 interceptions. Now, where does Brent's fit in? Man, he's going to walk into training camp and immediately compete with Damari Mathis for that second CB2 job, opposite of Pat Surtain. You keep Williams in the slot, and if whoever the loser is between Mathis and Brents, that's a very good CB3 off the bench, as opposed to Isang Bassi or Darius Phillips or Trayman Smith, no offense. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if an injury happened and Mathis or Brents was the first guy to step in. Now, George Paton a few weeks ago was talking about the draft, and he had an interesting comment I think you guys should see. There are a number of positives we feel like we could, we feel like we could strike. Whether it is a cornerback, whether it is a pass rusher, we feel like there is some depth in the middle round. So, in my prediction, I think the Broncos are going to go best player available, as they should, at edge or cornerback with their first 2 selections. I just think if they have a edge rusher or a corner that's higher up on their board at pick 67, that's what they'll go with. And whatever that position is in pick 67, then the next pick is going to be the opposite. I think they are zeroed in on those 2 spots right there, and whoever the best player is between those 2 positions, that will be their first draft selection, and then they will seesaw to the other position with their next draft pick. Now, before we get to the rest of today's show, we are trying to reach 14,000 subscribers before the NFL draft, and we've got a little bit of ways to go, but I believe in Broncos country. So if you're looking for a Denver Broncos YouTube channel, hit that sub button down below. Now let's move on to our next draft pick here in round 4. I'm going to go Tank Bigsby, running back out of Auburn. So I've seen a lot of mock drafts have Denver take a running back with one of their first 2 selections. I don't think they do that. Like I said, I think they go best player available at either edge or corner. So then that leaves us with Tank Bigsby in round 4 out of Auburn. Now, he reportedly had a pre-draft visit with Denver, a top 30 pre-draft visit. Combine measurements for Tank, 6 foot, 210 pounds. Projected 3rd round draft pick from Dane Brugler. So getting him in round 4 in this mock draft might be slipping a little bit, but you know what? It's mock draft season, and it goes to show that what you think might happen ends up usually not happening. He was a 3-year starter at Auburn. He was very productive for the Tigers. So Tank Bigsby, if I was looking to improve the Broncos running back room, I don't think it has to be with a early draft pick. I think you can wait until round 4 and find Bigsby in that position. Now, his last 2 seasons for Denver, 1,100 yards pretty much, 4.9 yards a carry, and 10 total touchdowns, 20 touchdowns altogether over the last 2 seasons. So, Tank Bigsby was a very productive player for the Tigers. And remember, Auburn was more or less a dumpster fire of a situation last year. So they have a player even come close to 1,000 yards on offense. Yeah, I'll take it. Now, I don't think the Broncos are going to go running back with one of their first 2 draft picks. I think they wait on it, and I think they should wait on it. I'd rather see them invest in players that could be long-lasting impact spots rather than, you know what, let's find a running back, but only use them for half the season or 1 season until Javonte Williams returns. That does not seem like a wise use of one of your first 2 draft picks in 2023. Moving on to our next mock draft pick, I go Bryce Ford-Wheaton, wide receiver out of West Virginia in round 5 at pick 139. Now, Bryce Ford-Wheaton is a special player, okay? Combine measurements, 6'3", 221 pounds, and a 4.38 40. Let that sink in for a moment. He's a 6'3" receiver who ran a 4.38 40. That is a very rare size and speed combination. Now, the only knock on Bryce Ford-Wheaton is he needs to improve his hands and his route running. But again, not every draft do you find a guy who's 6'3", so he's got the size element, and he runs under a 4.4 40. That is the type of stuff that GMs have to change their pants over. Now, Ford-Wheaton for the Mountaineers last year, 675 yards and 7 touchdowns. Again, they never really found any consistency at the quarterback spot. So this could be a draft sleeper where people go look at those numbers and think, well, why are we even talking about this guy? I'll tell you why. If he ever figures out how to catch a football every single time, or at least close to it, and gets the route running down, something that can be coached, he's got the rest of the package included, right? He's got the tools, he's got the size and the speed. Denver's wide receiver room, it is weird, right? You've got Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick. That is supposed to be on paper one of the best receiver rooms in football. But we have not seen Courtland Sutton show up since he got his contract extension. Tim Patrick is working back from an ACL injury, and Jerry Jeudy, unfortunately, has just never put together a complete full season. So maybe the plan here for Denver is take a wide receiver with one of your 5 picks in this year's draft, and you might be without Courtland Sutton in 2024. So you've already sort of started the process of getting some guys in the building to take over if you do move on from one of those 3 wide receivers in the future. Moving on to our final mock draft pick here in round 6. I couldn't help myself. I'm going quarterback from UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson from the UCLA Bruins. He is one of my favorite QB late prospects here. Now, DTR is an athletic, playmaking quarterback who uses his legs to extend plays. He's a bit undersized, doesn't see the field all that well. Those are the knocks he usually gets thrown at him. But he's a 5-year starter at UCLA, which unfortunately comes with some pros and some cons. Pro, he has plenty of experience. Con, in 5 years, he never actually corrected the issues he had from year 2 to year 5. But if you're looking for raw physical tools that give you a ton of upside, DTR would be a really fun pick to have sit for a season or 2 behind Russell Wilson. And who knows, after that, he could be ready to sort of take the league by notice. I think DTR is simply going to be an amazing football player or out of the league in 3 years. No in between for this guy. Here are his stats from 2022 for UCLA. 3,100 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, and 12 touchdowns on the ground as well. I don't want to give him a comp, but maybe a Jalen Hurts, but a little bit smaller, if you will. So Sean Payton, I think, is going to throw a dart at the quarterback board in this year's draft class. I think he wants to see if he can hit a lottery pick, right? Have a home run in day 3. If not, he'll be restarting next year or he likes Jarrett Stidham. But I believe that Sean Payton is going to bring in even more competition and take a swing at one of the quarterbacks in this year's draft class. So let's take a look at my mock draft one more time. In round 3, I went Tuli Tuipulotu from USC. Then I traded back with Detroit, picked up a future third, and found Julius Brents in round 3 at pick 81. Tank Bigsby from Auburn in round 4. Bryce Ford-Wheaton out of West Virginia in round 5. And DTR from UCLA in round 6. So grade my mock draft for me. A, B, C, D, or F. I really like it. This is probably my favorite mock draft I have done for this team. I'm going to give it a B+. Because at the end of the day, when you don't pick in round 1 or 2, it's hard to give yourself an A. But with what Denver has to work with, I think it's a solid B+.